Exodus. As I told you before, I will go over Exodus and conquest stories briefly, just to demonstrate that the same rules that I have described can be applied to these narratives as well. This treatment of the patriarchal stories can serve as a model for the reading of Exodus. In this case, too, the attempts to locate the events in the 13th century BC in the time of Pharaoh Ramses II have faced insurmountable difficulties. There is no mention of such an event in any New Kingdom source. Indeed, the Egyptologist Donald Redford convincingly showed that both the geography of Exodus in the Eastern Delta and the personal names in the story best fit the site period in the history of Egypt in the 7th and 6th centuries BC. That is close to the time of the compilation of the biblical text. A late date compilation would also fit most of the place names mentioned in regard to the wandering in the desert. At the same time, Redford did not discard the possibility that Exodus preserves an ancient memory of great events which took place centuries earlier, possibly the expulsion of Canaanite population from the delta of the Nile in the 16th century BC. Is it possible that the story of great confrontation between the Israelites and an Egyptian pharaoh was used to send a strong message to the Judahites of late monarchic times? Sum up. The patriarchs' Exodus and conquest narratives, which describe the formative history of the people of Israel, cannot be read as a straightforward historical account. It is conceivable that many of the stories preserve old memories, folk tales, myths, and theological anecdotes. But in the way they are portrayed in the Bible, they are wrapped in late monarchic, and in the case of the patriarchs and Exodus, also post-exilic realities. Moreover, the way in which they were compiled discloses that they serve the ideological aims of the authors. These stories should not be read, therefore, in a sequential order from early to late. Rather, as I mentioned yesterday, they must be understood from late to early, from the perspective of the period when they were put in writing.
The Testament is historical fiction. You will find some history in it. You will find some places that actually do exist. But that doesn't mean that the story itself is actually a true historical story at all. Israel Finkelstein, for example, who teaches there in Israel, they had access to the Sinai Peninsula. They were able to look and see, was there a group of 2 or 3 million people wandering in that peninsula for 40 years with all their cattle and all their tents? No, there was not. The Israeli archaeologists and historians themselves agree that the story is mythological. It did not happen.
Now what I want to do, since I only have a few minutes left, is run up and tell y'all about the man that y'all were taught to hate. You were all taught about this evil Pharaoh. Weren't you? Yes, sir. Who was it? Ramses, right? You were taught that he was an evil Pharaoh. You were taught that this man was an agent of the devil. You were taught that he enslaved the Hebrews and he wouldn't let them go, and God had to come and kill his firstborn and turn the Nile River into blood and bring frogs into Egypt and all that kind of. You were taught all that. That's right. You were taught about how many plagues? How many plagues was it? Was it 10 plagues? 7, 10, whatever. Look at somebody next to you and say, not one plague ever took place. Not one. See, I think I said it a few weeks ago. I'll say it to you again. Everybody say this. He who controls the printed page controls the thinking of the age.